Hello and welcome to That's Real Speaks. Today is Tuesday, March 27th. This is episode 217. I only know because I literally just did this 5 times and finally decided to look it up. That's how together I am, y'all. Super together. Okay. I am Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. How are you? I forgot to tell you last time because I'm terrible at this, even though I've done it like 216 other times minimum. I totally forgot to say the glare is terrible. I'm sorry. I really did try to adjust it. Do it a little bit. The last time we podcasted, I meant to tell you thank you. The time before that, I had talked about having done something crazy wackadoodle to my back. I am feeling so much better. And I actually was then too. I'm not completely back to normal though. What's up with that? That's full on like a month and something. What? Really though? Ridiculous. I'm almost 40. I totally don't mind about getting 40. I'm just like a little bit sad that it took me this long to heal up. Oh my gosh. Right. My husband got a little bit sick of me doing the constant updates. I'm like, look, I can only lift my leg this high. And he was like, okay. I'm like a 5-year-old. Like, I punch and I kick. And I was like, I can't punch and kick. You know. Anyway. But I wanted to say thank you. And I totally had forgotten. So thank you so much for all of your well wishes. It totally contributed to my speedy-ish, not really at all, but your energy helped. Otherwise, it might have taken 18 years to get better. Yes. Ding. So in our getting betterness, right? We've had the crazy weather. I know you're all sick of hearing it. I know. But part of it is that like we got to go bike riding for the first time this year, which was super exciting. Except for the fact that, oh my gosh, was my body put in stasis for the last 6 months? And like I've just been living virtual reality and not actually using my physical self to do anything for 6 months? Oh my gosh. I was so weak. We went up the biggest dish hill that we go up, which is, by the way, so not big. I was like, I think I have to walk my bike. There is no gear that's going to get me up this hill, y'all. Oh my gosh, what's up with that? Then we got home, I was all spaghetti legs. Now, luckily, it was totally fine the next day. It wasn't like a lingering, like, except for my pride, which did continue to go, oh my gosh, I gotta get back on it. Except ever since then, it's been like 12 degrees and snowing. Sorry, I was distracted by Olive sliding over there. Didn't expect her to be there. So yeah, what's up? So we did manage to go on like a little baby hike because there was like a minute before we got like at one point they were predicting we were getting like a foot of snow, which is kind of insane for us. We did end up getting like at least 8 inches, like 8 inches stuck. And it was like one of those 34, 36 degree snow days. Like that's Fahrenheit, by the way. So it's like a week, clearly. As soon as I said it, I was like, well, obviously. Anyway. So it was like and it was actually a really nice one. I know a lot of you were like, oh my God, snow is dead to me. I get it. I totally get it. We've actually had not a lot of snow this year. And it was on a weekend. Like, and we got my kid to her grandma's house so that she could go there for spring break. So we were on spring break. The kid was to grandma's house. It snowed all day on Saturday. And so then I knew, but by Monday or Tuesday, it was going to be melted. So it was actually really nice. It was a perfect excuse. I don't need one to not leave the house. My perfect excuse is that there are people out there. That's really kind of all the excuse I need. Okay, I'm just saying. They aren't you. Of course, if you were out there, it'd be different. But there are so many other people-y people out there. So yeah, but it was it was quite pleasant. We just kind of hunkered down and did a lot of nothing, which is kind of pleasant. Okay, it wasn't kind of pleasant. It was super pleasant because I was hunkered down without a child. I love my child so much. But it was super nice not to be like, no, you can't eat 7 pounds of sugar today. No, you cannot open up a Facebook account, an Instagram account, a Snapchat account, and something I don't even know about yet. No, you can't do that today. No, you can't have 35 people over today. Okay, one person, but to me that's 35. So super nice to just like not worry about anybody else's food intake. I was like, enjoy. Day off. I didn't even do dishes. Oh, it was delicious. It was very exciting. But anyway, what were we talking about? I don't even know. Oh, Shenanigans of the Mind, though. Those were kind of shenanigans. And then Shenanigans of the Mind. I've been listening to a lot of books this week because these 2 weeks. Because that's what I always do. But one of the things that I was listening to that I thought you might want to hear about was a book called The Frugalwoods. And let me look up who that is by. I checked out the audiobook from my library because my library is awesome. And it's The Frugalwoods, which is by a blogger. Her name is Elizabeth WIllard Thames. And I had never read her blog, which is by the same name as far as I understand. So I had no expectations of the book. But it's called Meet the Frugalwoods, Achieving Financial Independence Through Simple Living. So that is very intriguing to me because I love things about simple living. And there's the picture on the and they go to Vermont. Now, as soon as I say it, I'm like, wait, is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. So I thought maybe we'd have like a little homesteading angle, which I am super into because I'm a hobby farmer. The book was really not what I expected. It was not. She says very clearly at the beginning of the book, like she gives the kind of forward of, I understand that I am a person of privilege, that there are a lot of things that went well for me, like by the luck of the draw in terms of like how I was born, where I was born, all of these things. Like she acknowledges that she has a lot of privilege. So I think she is in some ways aware of it. Well, I mean, I'm sure she's very aware of it. I shouldn't say that. But it's kind of a hard book to read when you are not of like maybe a middle or upper class. Okay, so I'm putting this in. I was editing the podcast and listening to myself talk about this book, and I was a little rambly. Okay, I was a lot rambly. And it was very apparent that I have conflicted feelings about this book and some of the topics that it represents or brings to the surface. But one thing I did want to say about the book, things that I thought were well done in the book, or things that I enjoyed from the book and I took away from the book in a positive light. For one thing, the IKEA effect. I totally dig this concept of the IKEA effect, which I don't think I've heard before. And she does not coin the phrase. I don't know if she cites another source or it's just supposed to be common knowledge, but whatever. And she talks about the IKEA effect is basically that effect where when your threshold of satisfaction is much lower when you do a project yourself than it is when you pay a professional to do it. So for example, if I decide to put together a piece of exercise equipment in my house, if a professional does it and charges me $150 and the pedal is a little bit loose, I'm very frustrated with that, right? However, if I do it myself and the pedal is a little loose, well, A, I have more understanding of how to fix that. But B, I'm usually going to be okay with it because I know that I did it myself and that's not my normal skill set, so yay me. So that's the IKEA. So I took that away. I thought that was very enjoyable. And quite frankly, you know, these things that I did enjoy about the book were worth the cost of admission. I forgot to mention this. Another thing that I thought was very positive about the book is at one point when she is in the city and living at that very low income level, she's living in a neighborhood that she would not normally have lived in, where there's a place for her to rent with roommates that's within her budget. And she has somebody, as she's walking to the laundromat, I believe, yells at her that she needs to go home or go back home. And she has that initial moment of resistance where she's like, dude, I live here. Clearly I'm hauling my laundry to the laundromat. Like, there's all of this. But then when she sits with that for a moment and she has that realization, that this isn't her home, that she has made an elective decision to live in this neighborhood so that she can do this thing for the betterment of her career in terms of working for this nonprofit for a year to gain this relevant work experience that will then be able to catapult her into an actual position that will pay her well. So I do very much appreciate that, not only that she had that moment, but that she relayed it to the rest of us in the book. So I very much appreciated that. Another thing I found that was enjoyable about the book is really just another reminder that frugality has its own rewards. You know, when we're living in a society that is consumer driven, just like our economy is consumer driven, our entertainment is consumer driven, pretty much all of the messages that we receive from the outside world are consumer driven in some way or another. Quite frankly, yeah. It is nice to have somebody saying, no, I can have an 18, 20-year-old car that is reliable and works for me, and that is acceptable. That is not something that I should have shame around or feel less than. It's a car, and it gets me places. That is always a helpful reminder. And it's as basic as it is, again, when everybody's telling, but when the larger message is running so contrary to that, it is always a good thing to have a soul out there saying, no, that's not really what you need to do. I'm glad when anybody makes a realization that is better for their lives, right? Like, she makes this realization that this rat racy thing is not her bag. And I think it's wonderful that that is a point of view that's out there for some other people who really feel like they don't have an option to not be in this, again, this upwardly mobile social class. So, back for time number 3 to try to explain what problems I have with this book. I think really the thing that gets in my craw is not about this book itself. Like, this is one woman's story, and that's all it is, right? It is one woman's story. It is a memoir. It is not a how-to. It is not advertised as the solution for the world's poverty problem. It is in no way. So this is one person's narrative. So I don't think my problem really is with the book itself, but the fact that I feel like the book furthers this assumption in our society that one should be able to basically pull themselves up by their bootstraps, right? Yes, you'll have health insurance if you just don't get the new iPhone. Yes, you'll have a 401k if you stop buying coffee. And that is not at all what she's saying, and I don't mean to imply that at all. But I feel like that this is one part, this is a tiny little part of this message that we're getting over and over and over again. And that is a message that is not reflective of the majority of people in our society. And when we are, and I understand why people think it is. I understand on some level, I understand why we have this new phenomenon in America where people who are making $500, $600, $700, $800, $1 million a year and who are living in urban areas feel like they're middle class and identify strongly as middle class. Do not in any way identify even as upper middle class or as the wealthier class, the wealthiest class in our culture. And that's because they're working, right? They don't feel like they have a trust fund, so that is to them that security of birthright, literally that one could trace, that's to them what wealth is, right? That's to them what that isn't the case. It's a transformation in our society where these people that are making this insane amount of money still don't feel like they're wealthy because they have to go to work to maintain this lifestyle that they have become accustomed to in a very real way. That is not to say that they're taking it for granted or anything like that. It's just the reality of the moment in which they are. And it's a very real phenomenon culturally that we become completely adapted to the level of luxury at which we live. And so for them to conceive of not living in that level of luxury is not even in their headspace, right? So I can really appreciate that about this book, is that she allowed that to be in her headspace. But ultimately, I think, and again, maybe it's just my perspective. Maybe it's because I'm coming to this book after having just completed my taxes and looking at the amount of money coming in and wondering where it all went, and like going through some sort of process of self-flagellation over the fact that we are somehow not, or I am somehow not able to kind of squirrel away this wealth that I somehow can't keep a hold of. And so maybe that's, maybe that's real, well, that's clearly very strongly coloring what I'm taking away from the book. But it still feels like it's contributing to that idea that wealth is accessible to everyone and that financial security is accessible to everyone if you just do the right thing. And that is not true. Deeply and truly, that is not true. And so I think she acknowledges that that is not true. So again, my is not necessarily with this book as a memoir, as a representation of her experience, but what it feels like it is contributing to as the overall atmosphere of how we're understanding class today. So it's like, okay, as a fat lady, it is like those people that who are like, yeah, my cousin totally stopped drinking creamer in his coffee and lost 900 pounds in 3 days. And you're like, my other cousin stopped drinking regular soda and lost 12,000 pounds in 4 days. And you're like, I gave up my $388 a month yoga budget and suddenly I was financially independent. That's an superior oversimplification. But I'm just saying, it's like got that feeling of like, okay, good job. So hopefully I was able to cobble together something. Oh my gosh. I should never do book reviews on things that I'm like, about. Not even a review. That's not even the appropriate word, but you know what I mean. Let's get on to the knitting. Ooh. I meant to also tell you, I haven't gotten into these yet, but I'm excited from what I've read so far. Chevy Rell, who also has a podcast called Chevy Rell's Stuff, which you can find on YouTube, and I will definitely remember to put the link in the show notes. This is me telling my future self not to forget that. Recommended this author. Her name is Marilyn Kluger, and she's an Indiana native. So I checked it out. She has a lot of super crunchy books. So I was able to find The Joy of Spinning and Preserving the Summer's Bounty from Better World Books, which is a used bookstore, an online used bookstore that actually is also in Indiana. So I'm very excited. She has what Chevy Rell, which again I would concur. She has a similar writing style, like a very conversational writing style, which while not as perhaps sassy as our favorite Elizabeth Zimmerman, is reminiscent thereof. So I'm looking forward to them. Yay! I haven't looked at this one as much, but I have looked at the Preserving Summer's Bounty, which I am super digging. It feels like it has more interesting material to me, just because this is a kind of a basic text. In terms of the actual content, but that doesn't mean, again, that it's not just enjoyable for the conversational style, because I just opened to Spinning Flax and Other Fibers, and Spinning Other Fibers is the first thing is listed is dog hair, which is super cute in this time period. So, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Oh, that's not that old. I always get excited when there's an old receipt in the book. I find that very enjoyable for some reason. But anyway, so I just wanted to share with you in case I forget to do so in the future. I'll try to remember, though, to check back in with how I am enjoying these. But quite frankly, let's just say that the illustration of Lady shearing a sheep is pretty much worth like the $3.50 I purchased this for. And it totally has an exciting chart. The sheep breeds. Jeez, people, oh my gosh. Okay, but let's talk about knitting and spinning. So, spinning. I have finished yarn. I finished my bat from Knit Spin Farm, which is a bat that I was given at the Knitting Pipeline retreat in Washington, Illinois. I don't think you can see how awesome it is. It was 3.25 ounces, and it was called Hello Yellow. Those are 2 exclamation points. Hello, exclamation point, yellow, exclamation point. And it had Angelina Merino, Polwar, Sari Silk, Silk Noil, and Tarhi. And it's about 307 yards. And it's actually more kinky because it was in the skein. I put it in the skein a little tight. So let's look at it outside the skein and see if it is right. Ah! Like, I really do believe in semi-solid yarns so hard, but it is sometimes hard to convince yourself to spin them because there are so many fun hand-painted fibers out there. But man, bats are a perfect way to consume and spin a semi-solid yarn. Right. I guess I don't even know if you could really call that semi-solid, but because it's mostly this beautiful yellowy, but then it also has like a taupey grayish color in it. It feels like it's semi-solid because that's a neutral. That's what I'm going with. So anyway, it was very enjoyable to spin, of course, and I am looking forward. I don't know what it will be yet. Right? Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm wearing my Stephen West Color Craving, which I knit with Madeline Tosh sock-ish. I think it was sock. And this is like tomato, I think maybe. And then I don't remember the other ones. Come on. It's been a while. But isn't it pretty? Okay, so there's that. And then I'm also spinning. Speaking of semi-solid yarns, I am spinning from Hello Yarn. This is the Midnight colorway of her. I meant to look up how to actually pronounce this. Corollis? This? It's a sheep breed that I had never heard of, which immediately made me think, oh, it's a meat breed, and it was. And so this is a relatively short stable, very keeping with like a downy wool. So what is that, 3? Oh, well, that's actually longer than I really realized. When I was spinning, it felt quite short. Oh, so it's more like a 3-inch. It's not that short. But super springy, right? I like to spin down wools quite a lot, especially this length staple. When they get really short, sometimes it can feel a little bit stressful to spin them. But this was really fun because the down wools are a little bit stickier. Some people really hate that, right? And I imagine if you're a worsted spinner, that those kind of stickier wools are slightly more challenging than rather I'm more like a semi-woolen spinner. So I'm just a lazy spinner. The way I spin, the wool kind of just takes care of itself. Like I don't micromanage it as much as like a worsted spinning technique. I kind of let the wool grab onto the wool behind it, and I'm kind of just there to like as the gatekeeper, right? I'm all like, yeah, your friend can come in, and your friend, whoa, you can't have 5 friends, slow down, one friend at a time. So I'm just like the gatekeeper of the spinning action. I don't exert that much control over it. So I like a wool that kind of holds on to its friends because, again, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of take its friends into the orifice. It's just got dirty. I wanted to take its friends into the orifice, but not all at once. And the kind of toothier wools kind of have that tendency to just, it's easy for that. You know, they just kind of want to like, okay, cool, okay, we're going. Whereas the slippery fibers like merino are like, we're busting down the gates, and they take all their friends in, and I'm like, ah, and it's bad. But so I enjoy a stickier wool. So this is a meat breed, or at least a dual purpose breed, and I quite enjoyed it. So this was the club colorway. And then I decided that I would like to have, because I was actually looking to do some shawls a while ago and realized I had no worsted spun yarn for shawls, or not very much in what I wanted, which again was more semi-solids. So this colorway was awesome, and I thought, I think I'm going to dig spinning that wool. So I thought I'll get the coordinate, and I actually got 8 ounces of the coordinate. So I'll have basically a double skein of the semi-solid and then 1 skein of the variegated. So I thought that would be a good shawl approach. And so that'll give me a lot of flexibility, I'm hoping. It might be a little bit thicker than like a fingering weight. It might be, I mean, it definitely is going to be thicker than a fingering weight, but hopefully it's like a sport-ish, because I think that'll give me a lot of flexibility in knitting. But I'm very much enjoying that. Again, I would say the website I looked at for that sheep breed did not really classify its wool. It was primarily focused on the sheep's meat yields. But I would say that I would call it a downy, because it also has the characteristic that it has a lot of springiness in the yarn. Now, of course, this is not plied. This is just the single. And I'm just going to make me a liar, right? Because I've got this spun kind of tight because it's right at the end. But okay, let's see if this will work. Yeah, because this is rusted. This is probably this is the older bobbin. So this has been rusting for quite some time. So it's not a very good reflection. But it does have a definite good little bounce back to the stretching of the yarn. That was not a very good display. But I promised you that I did it earlier when I was spinning it, and it felt much springier than that. So I think it's just been on the bobbin too long. Okay. And then also I just started. So I probably only have maybe a half an ounce really of this. Look at this. What? Isn't this beautiful? So this is Prose, which is by Hip Strings. And she is an indie dyer who also has a lot of house blend yarns that she has had milled specifically for her shop. And this is called Prose. This colorway is called Prose. And it's 62.5% Polworth, 25% Tussa Silk, and 12.5% flax. And I had never spun anything with flax. And I do really enjoy Polworth. And so I really am enjoying it so far. I kind of dig the flax in it. I think it's very, well, you can see, like, it's very finely distributed, but every once in a while you get like a little tiny bit of the flax that's grouped together. And so it has a little bit more of a crisp texture, not like is it the bamboo that they come carbonated or whatever, and it's very crunchy feeling. It just has a slightly crisp texture to it in certain places, but overall is super soft. It definitely, I would say, has more of the characteristics of a Polworth silk, and the flax is not as aggressive as I thought it would be, but so far it's been very pleasant. And I mean, isn't that just a beautiful colorway? Primarily this beautiful silvery gray, but with fun pops of purple, and even better, this fun burnt orange color. So yes, thank you very much. I will take all of it. So I also have 8 ounces of that. So in progress. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Okay, So now let's talk about knitting. Finished objects. Oh my gosh. I only have one. I almost had two. It was so close. But let's talk about the one I do have. I finished my Rikke Hat. And this yarn, ooh, that's super attractive. This yarn is from Marigold Jen. It's her DK weight. And this is the Lagoon colorway. I don't know if you can see how amazing it is, but it's amazing! Look at me. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. Isn't it fun? I really cannot say enough about this colorway. It is gorgeous. And it is old, so I don't know that she can reproduce it. I think this is probably like a 4-year-old skein yarn. Alright, look at that. Now, I did not make this one as deep as I usually make my Rikke hats because, quite frankly, I made it bigger around than I normally, I guess, do. Usually when I make hats, I kind of have to make them a little bit bigger around because I have a giant head. But I guess I had forgotten that the Rikke has already got, maybe not positive ease, but is like less negative ease than normal. So my hat kind of looks like a baby sweater. Like when I got to about here, I was like, oh, baby. I only made it like one decrease round repeat bigger. So I think the decrease rounds are 13. And so I only made it 13 stitches bigger, but it's like a baby sweater. So I decided I should start the decreases before I ran out. And I apologize. Rikke Hat is by Sarah Young. You'd think I'd know that by now. I've knit like 6 of these silly things. But so mine is not as deep as I usually make them. And also, quite frankly, I have not blocked this yet. So it'll get a little bit deeper because the garter stitch will definitely stretch. But I love it. And even though it looks like a baby sweater, it still fits. My giant head. Whatever. So then the other thing that was almost finished, but wasn't, was my Granito. And this is by Joji Locatelli. And I am knitting mine with Beaverslide Dry Goods 2-ply Sport in the Juniper Heather colorway. Right? It's got 2 sleeves, yo! But it doesn't have 2 pockets yet. So I finished both my sleeves. I haven't actually tried it on. Isn't that silly? I should have tried it on. But to make sure the sleeves actually worked, but whatever. And so now I'm just working on the pockets. So I think I have one pocket almost done. You know how that is. You're like, oh, I'm gonna like knit those pockets in 10 seconds. And then you're like, oh no, actually that is actually a good amount of knitting. So I am working on those still. And next time, not only will I be done with this, but then I can also give out Patreon prizes. What? It's true. Next time podcast will be Patreon prizes and a finished Granito, for goodness sakes. But yeah, by the way our spring is going, it'll then be 95 degrees, but you know, whatever. Oh my gosh, right? And then somebody was like, oh yes, I'm almost done with my Maryland sheep and wool sweater. I was like, what? Nobody told me I was supposed to knit a Maryland sheep and wool sweater? Why did I feel like it was weird that I, A, didn't think about it. But then B, once it was presented to me, I suddenly felt guilty for having not done this made up thing that I did not need to do it anyway. Whatever. Maybe I'll wear my Hansel shawl and an apron and just full on be me at the retreat, at the festival. By the way, I'm still working on that. I have gotten to 1/4 of the way done with that applied edging. Oh my goodness, applied edging. I love you, but not all the time, okay? So I'm still working on applied edging. I have just turned the first corner. I'll talk about it next time. I did adapt the pattern a bit, and I'll tell you about that next time. Okay, so then the last thing I have to show you, no shameless self-promotion by the way, I think I am kind of the mindset that there will be a favorites update the 1st of April, and then I think we will be without updates until after Maryland sheep and wool. I think that's what I gotta do though. Anyway, so the next thing I'm going to show you is the Cardamom hat, and I want to say thank you to Mom to Emo because she gifted me the pattern. I had put it in my queue, because it is very enjoyable. Oh, I didn't print a good picture of it. That was foolish of me. But so this is the Cardamom hat by Boyland Knitworks. And I'm trying to get you a picture, but I'm being very bad at it. So let's continue on while I continue to do that. And I think the reason I was drawn to it is because it has, it's colors that I very much enjoy, and I'll buy anything that has gold in it, apparently. Well, I didn't buy it, but I wanted to. She beat me to it. So, it's just a nice fingering weight. Whoa, how close do I have to get? There we go. Fingering weight hat pattern with a little pop of color in it. And I think the picture that I originally saw of it, somebody had used sort of a speckled yarn as the lighter color, and I really dug how it looked. So, I won't lie to you. I wanted to make it exactly as it was pictured, and I had almost the yarn to do it, but I was like, I saw one again that is speckled in there as the lighter color in that image, and so I thought, okay, I gotta make it happen. So, I decided that I was going to use String Theory, which somebody had given me a while back. I mean, like a while back, like 4 years ago back, and its reading is a much, it's pretty close actually. I was going to say it's reading slightly more fluorescent, but because it's really not fluorescent, but it was reading a little bit there. This greeny teal, and again, it's String Theory Dye Works. It's an MCN, and I apologize, I'll put the color in the show notes. And then I had, this is a terrible, here we go. The Yarnhoarder colorway from Linneman Fiber Arts. And this is actually their Callback Base, which is a sport weight. But this String Theory Dye Works is pretty plump. And this sport weight is not terribly plump, so I thought they could play together. And there's definitely a similar green pop in the Linneman Fiber Arts Yarnhoarder colorway. I thought, so I'm going to try it. Hopefully there is enough contrast, because this is not as white. Like, this does read more of like a dovey gray, I think, just because it has so much going on in it. So hopefully it'll be enough contrast for the color, but I'm thinking since that's so bright there, it'll work. And then I haven't decided on the stripe. I'm either going to do like, I have like a little bit of Whiskey Barrel left, which is like a dark brown, or like a very dark eggplant, or I also have some like fuchsia. So I think I'll go with one of the two darker colorways though. We'll see. Because I'm already like, that's a lot of color. Oh, I did actually, and I only have this much done. So all I did was, the pattern doesn't call for a specific cast on, but I did do a tubular 2x2 rib because I generally just like the way it looks. So I did a 2x2 tubular cast on, so I've just gotten basically an inch of ribbing done. Wow, it looks so bright there. It is pretty bright though. Anyway, okay, so I think that's all of me talking. Oh my Lord. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk next time. Bye.